There we go. We're cheating. We're 100% cheating on this, and that's absolutely fine. Purely because life got in the way, and I ran out of time. But I needed to do this properly before we headed out to Coventry this weekend, just to make sure that everything was working. And everything is, which is cool. So there we go. Let's do this quickly then. Anthony Russell here, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, and one day out from the final weekend of the NHL season, and because I'm terrible at time management this week, later than it should be, but it had to be done. We go back to last weekend, Saturday the 20th of April, for the National Ice Hockey League National Division Playoff Group B encounter between the Swindon Wildcats and the Telford Tigers. Final score, Swindon Wildcats 6, Telford Tigers 1. The goals for the Wildcats, 2 from Gael Labuele, 2 from Reed Sayers, 1 from Aaron Nell, 1 on his final game with the league centre from Stevie Whitfield, the lone goal of this game coming from Finley Howells. The whole purpose of this video, like I say, is because this way I've rounded it all up. Every game I'll have seen with my own two eyes across this season will have had its banners on the road moment. And yes, back to Swindon for the second time in 2 weeks. But there was a decision-making process that needed to be made as to where I went for the last game of the season, mostly because there was a lot going on. A lot of guys retiring, a lot of permutations. It was also where I could get to. My wife wasn't feeling very well last weekend, so I needed to make a decision as to where I went. The Bees were already out and were playing a lead side that we all knew were going through as top of their group, so where to go? Peterborough was too far with an unwell wife. Swindon it was, and the final game, home game of a career for Russ Cowley, who will get the send-off that the British ice hockey legend that he is will get under a banner retiring his jersey for a team he doesn't play for anymore but is still playing, but will play his last weekend this weekend. Pretty weird. Having been at Romford the weekend before, I was really intrigued to see what Swindon would do. Romford had outthought and outworked Swindon a little bit on their own ice. And then you end up in the situation where Swindon still had the cards in their favour. They knew, with results going their way, everything would be alright. And they came racing out of the gate. Now, it took them a while. It took a while for everything to kind of settle down. And Telford are no slouches. We can see that by given what's happening tomorrow, but I'm not sure what the idea was from Telford in the immediacy. But the problem for Swindon was it was all starting to feel very much like the weekend before. It was starting to feel like the Romford game. And I wondered how much of that game that Tom Watkins will have sat down and watched, because it felt a little like Telford were trying to copy. But then eventually, with shots coming in and nothing really seeming to stick, a dirty goal got them on the board. Now, this has been credited to Gael Labuele. People around me are swearing blind that it was Reed Sayers who got the final touch past Brad Day. But a loose puck that bobbles around and bounces around, it hits something of somebody in a Wildcats jersey and went over the line. But that was how the Romford game started. Fair play, this goal was a fair bit later on, 13 minutes into the game, but a similar sort of circumstance. Once the second goal went in, just over 30 seconds later, it didn't feel like it was going to be the same anymore. Tyler Plews put Aaron Nell away in behind the Telford defence, snapped it past Brad Day, 2-0, and it felt like Swindon were rolling. And then when they get a late power play goal in the first period from Gael Labuele, and it's 3-0 heading into the first break, it felt a little bit like a weight had lifted off of the Swindon fans around me. More in the sense of they'd seen what had happened last week. They'd gotten nervous. They were wondering what was going on now. By that point, of course, as well, things were starting to happen in Milton Keynes. People were wondering what was going on. And, I mean, not long had been played and then came by the time the first period came to an end at 3-0. But there was a bit of a desire from the home fans to really push on. Make the statement. Get it done. The Tigers fans were making a bit of noise. They just didn't seem to be much of a feeling either way, knowing that ultimately they would probably still have a chance the following night, irrespective of what happened. When Stevie Whitfield scored his goal, less than 2 minutes into the second period, game was done. Now, I wondered about this one at this point whether Brad Day would be removed from the game and Matty Blore given the time. The answer was obviously no. Brad Day played the full 60 minutes here. And Finley House scores a goal at 4-1 about 27-28 minutes into the game. It was very, very similar to Aaron Nell's goal. In fact, at the same end as well. Pass put the man behind the D, walked in, fired home. And the problem is, certainly for the folk around me, the nerves started to kick back in because Swindon fans have been there way too many times before. And we've seen it happen in ice hockey. I've been to Bison games, I think of the Bison games against Romford, 5-1, 4-1 down, and coming back and winning. And you just don't want to do it, especially as well because Telford had kind of got a goal out of nowhere. And then they started pushing. And I think it started to really, really make everybody very, very edgy. And then the puck goes into the far corner from where I'm standing, and Colby Tower chases it down. He beats all of the Telford players to it. He goes to his left, then cuts back up to his right and comes back up the half wall towards the hash marks. And once Tower notices that the extra Telford man has cheated across, thinking there's going to be a ball battle, he's going to need to dig it out. Tower has seen Reed Sayers where nobody else has. And Sayers is credited with the 5th goal. Make no mistake, Colby Tower made that goal. And at 5-1, that was the door shut. That was the door fully shut. Nothing to be said there. 34 minutes gone at 4-1. And then they do make it, and then they make it 6-1 a few minutes later. Again, Tower setting up Sayers to finish home. 6-1 heading into the second period break. We're done here. We're not expecting anything. That feels a little bit too far to come back. And it felt too far to come back even in the context of the game, especially when Telford didn't come out and put a ton of pressure on them. Now, were they much more defensively solid? Yes. Some people would say at 6-1 down, Swindon weren't trying. Swindon were trying. But what it seems that is that Tom Watkins snapped his team into focus. We won't worry about tonight. We will worry about tomorrow. We'll use these last 20 minutes to be better than we have been for the last 40. Use this as your practice because we go again tomorrow and we need to go again tomorrow. I said on Wednesday's What's Current stream that when I got out of the rink, because with my wife not being well, the game peters out to its conclusion, it is done. And Wildcats fans are feeling happy. They can go into tomorrow knowing that they've got a really good chance of making it. But when I left the Link Centre at about 9 o'clock, nothing was set. We had no result from Milton Keynes. We didn't know what was happening. We weren't 100% sure what was going to happen there. By the time I got out of the car, 10 years worth of waiting was done. And the Swindon Wildcats were back at the playoff weekend for the first time since 2014. It's been that long. Genuinely to the point where a player in the National Division sent me a message going, "It's not really been 10 years, has it?" "It has," I said. I won't repeat their response to that. This game is an individual thing, though. Was kind of where it's felt a little bit like Telford have been all season, where they've clearly got the quality. And for whatever reason, the execution... It wasn't that Telford didn't try. I just don't quite understand what the game plan was. Was it road hockey? Was it Peterborough style hockey? Were they literally just sitting back and trying to absorb all the pressure? I don't really understand what they were trying to do. This, of course, then comes in the context of the following night, the Sunday night, where Telford still needed a win to qualify and blew the doors off of Swindon. 9-3, crazy score, to the point where Telford won the head-to-head and went top of the group and are playing in the second semi-final as the home team as a result. So clearly it's there. And clearly we can see from Telford that where people have potentially had questions about Sutton and Pecker across this season, they've woken up in the last couple of weeks and they are going to be a problem. On the night, it felt very much like every other Telford performance I've seen this year. There's quality there, but where's it gone? Maybe for whatever reason they just don't perform when I end up seeing them. Such is the nature of life. But when you've got a player like Vladimir Luka, who has had his career best year for numbers of 42, and you got Finley Howes, and you got Scott McKenzie, and you got these two Canadian lads who will be playoff hardwired, who've suddenly woken up, and Archie Hazeldine and Rhodes Mitchell King. Yeah, I still think that it's a little bit of Telford walking into Peterborough's wheelhouse on Saturday, but if they prove me wrong, as I've said to Scott McKenzie this week, happy to be proved wrong, if you can do it in the right way. On this night, though, I was left feeling quite happy, quite pleased for my Swindon sporting friends. When I got out of the car back here in Southampton, looked at my phone and saw what had happened. Where I have no team, I can't have that feeling. Not at the moment, anyway. That day will come again. But there are some people I've met who are Wildcats fans who have never had that feeling. And you know what? I'm really happy they get to have that. Anyway, that's the game. This is going live and I'm about to put it onto the website as well, so it's there. But Coventry. I'm commentating across all 4 games this weekend. If you're at home, get your streams. If you're in Coventry, come say hello. The Windmill's got its beer festival on. We're going to have a cracking time. There'll be a few bits and pieces out. I'll put out stuff across the weekend as well on the Twitter account at BannersOTW. Could this game that I saw last week be the final? There's a real chance it could be. There are only 2 encounters I've seen twice this season. Solent Invicta and Swindon Telford. Will it be 3? So a few people are going to have a say in that. We'll see though. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Check back after the weekend for a bunch of stuff. New hockey stories in the works as well. Be happy, be safe.